Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the fifth in our series of Leaders, Pioneers and Professionals. This afternoon, I'm delighted to have a panel from Boeing. We're here this afternoon to discuss diversity in STEM. We've got a really excellent panel this afternoon that's made up of two colleagues from Boeing in Italy and two colleagues from Boeing in the UK. So I'll just do a very, very quick introduction of those panelists, which we're delighted to be chatting to this afternoon. Enrica Alfonzetti is a business analyst at Boeing who's worked there for the last 7 years in the supply chain and production control. We'll come back to Enrica in a second.
Yeah.
Thant Phway is a quality engineer who's been with Boeing for the last 4 years and has worked in the oil and gas sector. And she has a PhD in electromagnetics. We'll probably cover that a little bit later. Omar Mongelli is a supplier program management project engineer, and he's got a background in manufacturing, supply chain management, and mechanical engineering. And Martin Chandler is a systems engineer at Boeing UK in Bristol, and Martin has an engineering background spanning the defense and space sectors. So if we come back to Enrica, please just give the viewers an indication of your career and what you're currently working on, if you can.
Okay, so good morning all. My name is Enrica Alfonzetti. I'm an industrial engineering, and so I have a master's degree in industrial engineering with a specification in improvement of processes. And so I started as a junior planner in a German company, Bosch, for a diesel pump. And then I changed my career, and then I was responsible for purchase department in the firefighting systems company. And then I landed in a Boeing Company as a supply chain analyst for the first 4 years. Then I became industrial engineering and a lean facilitator. So for continuous improvement, Six Sigma, and all the improvement activities. So now I move in the US team as a business intelligence analyst. So actually my activity is about data mining, building dashboards and tools for create commonalities, measurement of KPIs, metrics at enterprise level. So now my job role is really, really international basis because I work with all the teams worldwide. And so actually my project in this moment, one of my main projects is to work with all the regions, so North America, Europe, Asia, and India, to create this enterprise tool for supplier performance measurement. And so it's really interesting. It is my really diverse team, and I enjoy a lot my new job now. So
excellent.
And thank you for to be part of this panel today.
Thank you very much indeed. And we'll come back to some of the international aspects of your role a little bit later. Thank you very much. So secondly, let's go to Thant.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Thant Phway, and as Nick mentioned, I have been in Boeing for 4 years. Prior to Boeing, though, I was in the oil and gas industry. I worked for about 9 years in a couple of organizations. Within Boeing, although I've only been here for 4 years, I feel like I've done quite a few job roles, and I completely, absolutely love it, and that's a variety aspect that I love about my job. I came in as a continuous improvement practitioner. I've done program management. I've done some aspects of lean, business improvement, and now I'm working on a very exciting project. Martin will echo as well. It is the P8, bringing in the P8 capabilities into the UK. You might remember a few years ago when David Cameron signed this contract with us. So yes, very exciting times for us, and exciting project indeed. And I look forward to speak more about my experiences later on.
That's brilliant. And I worked at Boeing between 2003 and 2011. So the early part of the P8 discussions was taking place towards the end of my time with the company. So it's fantastic to see that it is coming into service now and will deliver an amazing step changing in a capability that actually has been lacking from the UK inventory for a while. So look forward to hearing as much as you could tell us about that, but that is a terrific program. And your background, Thant, is a very interesting one in terms of where you started off. Just give us a minute, if you could, on how you came to the UK and maybe some of the challenges that you had along the way.
Sure. So I am from Burma, born in Burma, but I was raised in Malaysia. And when it was time to decide, which university I go to, what subject I took, that was easy because I always wanted to be an engineer. And we were Burmese. We are very familiar with the British education system. So we were made up of my dad, my auntie. They're both in the education stream at the time. So it was no doubt that I was going to come to the UK to do my first degree. So I came here to Leicester, did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. A very, very proud moment, achieving that. Hey, I'm an official engineer now. And then what's next, right? So got to go to the field, look for a job. So I worked in the construction industry for a bit in Singapore. I found a job there. But I always wanted to further my studies. So I went on to do masters in Singapore in mechanical engineering. Again, very broad spectrum of not just mechanical. We have solar power, a lot of different projects that I did then. And I also wanted to, put my curiosity, always wondered, what's it like to do a PhD, curiosity to rest. And also, I miss the weather in the UK. Believe it or not, I do. 365 days a year, 32 degrees every day. It just doesn't do it for me. So I applied for some PhD programs here, and I managed to get one with a funding with Cardiff University. So then I came back to the UK. It was partial funding, but it's great. But I started off with researching materials in denser scalars, very, very interesting. But then my findings then led on to contribution towards transformer noise reduction. Again, more material studies and expansion and contraction of those materials during magnetization. So very, very interesting. However, I always knew that I wanted to be in the industry, not in the academic side. I wanted to explore more, as much as possible, different aspects of engineering. And the company I started my job with was Schlumberger. I mean, again, this is a company I've known when I was growing up. Big oil and gas company at the time, huge technology, so it was no-brainer. So I joined Schlumberger. I started my work in Aberdeen in the fields in the North Sea. Very interesting being on the rigs. And then it was a program. It was a tech and field program. So you were in the field for a bit. You come to a tech center, manufacturing, design, and things. It was a really nice long stint of oil and gas. I worked in GE oil and gas briefly for a bit, and the sector had a downturn. And this job came up because I live in Chepstow, not far from Bristol. And of course, Boeing, when you have the brand popping up, I applied and here I am, continuous improvement. I came in as continuous improvement, and now I'm a quality engineer in Boeing.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. We'll come and touch on some of those issues. We'll let the point about the weather go for the moment, because we do have some contrasting opinions on the weather in the UK, clearly. But I take your point. I've never been to Singapore, but I do take your point. So thirdly on the panel this afternoon, we'll come to our second Italian colleague, Omar Mongelli. Could you introduce yourself for a couple of minutes to the audience?
Sure. First of all, very excited to be part of this panel. I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated in my hometown, Bari, in southern Italy. During this journey, I had the opportunity to participate to the Erasmus project, so which was really my first opportunity to get in touch with multicultural students coming from every place from the world. So it was really a great experience. And then I started working on 2009 in the aerospace industry. First 1.5 years with a small company supporting the former Alinea composite, which was deployed on the 787 program for Boeing. So I spent 2.5 years there. Then I had the opportunity to apply for a job in Boeing as supply chain analyst on a horizontal stabilizer. And after 1.5 years, I was called back to my previous location in order to support some activity on configuration management, which was my previous activity with the external company. So Boeing this time called me to support, being the Boeing manufacturing engineer, this activity in correspondence with the first -9 model that was produced in Grottaglie factory. I spent 3.5 years as a manufacturing engineer. I was like a pioneer of this activity as an Italian employee, since we only had expat from US covering same job role. So that was really a great experience. Then I moved to the former, it was called Embedded Cost Reduction Team, which had the activity, main activity was to work on cost saving projects. So I spent almost 2.5 years in this job role. And during this activity, I had the exceptional opportunity to work and be part of the so-called Lean Partner Council, which is a session that every quarter Boeing set with all 787 supplier. So we had the opportunity to get together with colleagues from Japan, Korea, so a very exciting experience. And now it's, I spent also, after this experience, I worked for 1.5 years as industrial engineer. And this was also a very challenging, but great experience since in few months we had to assess many suppliers' capability versus the rate that was assigned for each program, not only 787. And after this, I've been recently moved, working as supplier program management to follow the so-called work transfer. So some work statement that has been moved from one supplier to Leonardo. So I'm watching closer in terms of project management, the status of this work transfer. Okay. And that's it.
That's fantastic, Omar. Thanks very much. And again, there are a number of points you raised there that we'll come back and examine. So last but not least, Martin Chandler, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, good afternoon, Nick. Yeah, my name is Martin Chandler. I'm a Systems Engineering Manager at Boeing in Boeing Defence UK. I've been a systems engineer since 2007. I went to university in Bristol, studying electronic and communications engineering, did a master's in engineering in that. Yeah, I then went to work for a well-known company called Thales and started out on their graduate program there, spent the best part of 4 years on that. I worked on some really interesting projects. So my first engagement was working on soldier systems, so looking at GPS systems for, in particular, for soldiers in Afghanistan, where they're having problems with people obviously being wounded or killed in the field and trying to track where their location was. So very much localized command and control. I then moved into what was called special projects. The main body of work I did there was in counter IED systems, so trying to ensure that vehicles could detect IEDs in the road in front of them. Again, a massive problem in Afghanistan, so very much under the UOR, so the urgent operational requirements that were coming out of the MOD at that point to react very quickly. I then moved on to working on some work in the nuclear industry. So I worked on a deployable communication information system. So that's basically off the back of Fukushima. There was a lot of work in the nuclear industry around being able to react to a similar style events in the UK, nuclear plants around the country. and we had to basically produce a box which would allow people to communicate and be able to tap into the systems that were in place in the plants to enable immediate reaction should there be any issues at our nuclear plant. I also worked at the Sellafield for a little while on some work on the security systems up there. And then my last role at Thales was working on a mobile biological laboratory for use in deployments around bases. So to try and make sure if there was any issues, they could actually do some level of biological detection at a local level. So that was at my time at Thales. I then moved to Boeing after that, moved into a role of systems engineer. So as you can see, I've pretty much done the same sort of role as I moved through my career. And while I've been at Boeing, I've worked on a variety of proposals related to the platforms that obviously Boeing are bringing across the UK. So I've worked on P8, as Thant mentioned, so assisting with working out what sustainment activities need to take place to make sure the aircraft can fly on a regular basis. I've also worked on Chinook. I've done some work on a bit of work on E7 as well recently to assist with that. As of April, I was moved from being a systems engineer into being a manager, something I've been quite looking forward to doing because I really enjoy the sort of capability development piece and also the sort of career development piece with people. So I now have a team of 14 systems engineers working for me across both pure systems engineering, but also in human factors and security. And that's been a really interesting time for me, as you can imagine. But 1st of April was just after the COVID-19 lockdown as it happened. So, and we've got a lot of new people in our team. So it's been a very challenging time to try and get your head around how do you be both a manager and a leader in that area to try and understand how you make sure that people can come on board into the company, and also to make sure that we go forward and actually look at how our team works. The team itself is actually consists of 30, I think it's 36 people now, including 2 managers. So between the 2 managers, we obviously need to make sure that the team continues to develop and that we look forward to the future as Boeing, in particular Boeing Defence UK, expands its operations and its teams.
Yeah, okay. All right, Martin, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. Just an observation or a supplementary question, if I may. So you've obviously got a detailed land systems, almost combat focused background. How have you, how's that really sort of expanded? What have been the key changes for you and the ways you've had to adapt to be able to take your experience into a different array of engineering issues and program issues?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to having the ability to understand how to apply systems engineering on a variety of situations. So one of the skills that I like to think I'm very good at is going into any scenario and working out actually how does systems engineering benefit that program. So one of the most interesting recently has been looking at how we apply systems engineering to services. So very much, the old school way of thinking was, right, I'm building, let's say I'm NASA, I'm building a rocket, right, let's work out how we need to build a rocket, what requirements do we need to meet, and what solutions can we develop that actually meet that. And for a system, that's relatively straightforward. When you look at things like services, which is a lot of what Boeing offers in the UK, and in fact is a lot of what the MOD is looking for now, where they want closer relationships with their contractors, where the contractors often run the services on their behalf. There's actually a slightly different way of thinking in terms of how you set the service up. And in particular, but the same model does apply. If you think about how you can model it up and work out, right, so one part of a service needs to speak to another. Well, you've got an interface. That's not different to how you look at a product and in terms of communications between 2 parts of a space rocket or a land system. So that's kind of the key to it, I think.
Yeah, and part of the reason for asking that question, Martin, is because it's a little bit of a segue into a question for the panel. And one of the things that we always struggle with in the UK, particularly in the aerospace and defence sector, if not aviation in that realm as well, is inspiring people to have careers that you've got long program gestation periods. You've got more attractive salaries in some sectors. So when you put in a number of other factors into that mix, not least of all are some of the misconceptions that people have about careers in engineering, technology, or STEM in the round. and you've actually, your career spans different sectors as well.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering what your view, Martin, would be, and what Thant's view would be on the way that the UK articulates the career options that are available. Where does it start for you? Where do you tend to get inspired? Where do you think there's an opportunity even to inspire young people, particularly, to get on that career ladder? So, and if we can have your view, Martin, just quickly on that, and then we go to Thant. But what I'd like to do is obviously with Boeing being a very firmly international or global business, I would like to come to Enrica and Omar for their contrasting views over the Italian approach to the same question.
Yeah, so I think in the round, it comes back often to a generational thing, I think. You know, if you look at how, you know, I went into engineering because my dad was an engineer. You know, I enjoyed technology when I was a child. It was always around me. And therefore, engineering is very, very, very important from that perspective, you know, development of technology. So I think it's very important that the engineers of today and wider STEM do really pass that on to the younger generation. So, you know, where we can be involved in activities which encourage the younger generation to get involved. They obviously have a very different perspective on things, you know, in terms of, you know, the amount of technologies around and the things they use from day to day. It's very powerful in that sense. When I was young, you know, making me sound very old, you know, the computers were quite a new thing when I was growing up, and, you know, the stuff we had was very expensive and quite niche, and there wasn't many people who had the opportunity to access, you know, computers and the latest technology. So trying to encourage people to understand that these things don't just come out of the box. You know, you go down a shop, you buy this stuff, and actually, you know, there's an opportunity to get involved with that and actually work out how things work as well. You know, understanding, you know, how does an iPad work? How does, you know, a piece of technology work? How does an aircraft work? Actually making them intellectually curious. And I think that doing that will honestly help them want to go into a degree in, you know, a career in engineering or in other STEM areas.
Yeah. Okay. And Thant, the same question for you.
Yeah, sure. Same as Martin, my dad's an engineer. I was always interested in fixing things, getting involved, finding out how things work and stuff. So my career path was very straightforward, and I never once doubted what else I wanted to do. Now, I have a son. He is 7.5 years old, and he's of school age. And recently, you know, been involved with his school as well on, you know, engineering talk or STEM talk, if you like. What we can, or what I think the gap, or how we can bridge the gap, is really reaching out to the schools and really partnering with them, as well as organizations such as, you know, Learn by Design, Tomorrow Engineers, a lot of other voluntary organizations that will work on behalf of schools or corporate or public sectors to reach out into schools, go in and do these projects with the children. And that is the most effective way to broaden the thought process of the children, so they know what paths are out there, or how to encourage their thought process. You know, when they are participating in a robotics challenge, really, you know, engage with them really brings out the whole end-to-end engineering piece while doing that process. Doing a talk in your local schools where your children participate, or where people you know participate, you know, just talk about what engineers do or what your company do. Reaching out would be something really that we should be doing actively, and not by chance or by occasion. You know, it should be a program. So we really need to work together with the schools, I think, industry and schools directly, not at the GCSE age, GCSE age, or not at when they're coming to college age. I think it's a little bit late then. I think you've got to start at a younger age, you know, not so much early primary, maybe mid-primary or towards the end of primary. Start getting that thought process in their heads. I think that's really, really beneficial.
Okay, and that makes sense. So Enrica, Give us your thoughts on the Italian perspective. I must admit, I'm not too au fait with the educational system in Italy and how people are inspired. Italy obviously has a huge aviation and aerospace and defense industry,
Yep.
characterized by some very big companies, clearly. But I wonder what your thoughts are on, and what you could impart to us about how youngsters are inspired in your part of the world.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to say that, I mean, I think that the very likely thing is that now, thanks to the globalization and thanks to the fact that, I mean, the technology is something that everybody in each age manage and handling every day. So it's something that the new generation is really inside. So I guess that Italy as a nation so takes care about this, starting from the schools, as Martin and also Thant said, because we try to be closer to the young generation with, I don't know, projects between university and college and middle schools, and trying to embed it and involve this new generation since the beginning. Because I think that the Italian nation, what it's trying to do is just to give a new inspiration models. And I think that this new generation is what they need. Here I was part of the STEM for Future project. That was a fantastic project. And this project consisting of 3 schools in the nation. So it was from Milan, from Rome, and from Florence. And what we did is just to provide to the guys a robot and try to challenge them to building up a program and try to move and remotely command this robot and have a good project on that. So it was so nice how they were so enthusiastic and they were so happy and they handled it so easily with the technology. Because as I say, this is something that new generation is in their blood. And so I guess this is very interesting to provide them this kind of new inspirational models. And this is what Italy is trying to do, starting from the schools and go on. Because when you have this kind of interest, it means also that you are creating a society that is diverse, that is fascinating to these topics. It means that are willing to change things and to improve the things that they live. And this is the real challenge that we have to provide to our guys. So be motivated, be passionate about technology, be inspired about what happens in the world. So travel a lot, so try to also be inspired about what happened in the wars, and try to do something to be part of that. And so this is the message that Italy as a nation, but also we are trying to provide to these guys through several programs.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you touched on a couple of issues we'll come back to in a second, Enrica. Omar, what are your thoughts on the challenges that we've just been talking about? And to Enrica's point, some of the things that young people can do to become more involved and more engaged in the industry.
Being 42 years old, I would like to make like a difference on when I start studying, when I start university. It was the end of 1996. At that time, consider that the situation was that there was a high rate of unemployment. So generally, along with those who are born with willing to be an engineer, there is a consistent amount of people who saw in this path an opportunity to grow, to gather a good job, and solve these issues that were affecting so dramatically the country. So I would say that probably in the past, what was missing was a little bit a sense of the scope why you are doing something. So it was clear which target you could achieve, but then it was a secondary aspect why you are doing this difficult path. So I would say that by year I've seen how Italy is changing. We are still affected by this unemployment issue, and of course COVID is not an help in this difficult situation. But it's a recent news tells us that European leaders are getting together in order to work on a recovery plan to provide some funds to states who have been most dramatically affected by this situation. And Italy is one of the most impacted one. And it was good to hear from our Prime Minister the first 3 points that are targeting digitalization, are targeting green economy, are targeting the importance of the career outside the university in the research and development fields. And I think this could really be something that enabled the new generation to be more attracted to this kind of studies that will make them confident that they know why they are doing this, but at the same time they will return the community with a huge payback. So I'm in this moment of changes of uncertainty. It's good to have a polar star to follow in that direction, and I think that we can work through this situation and eventually provide new generation some inspirational topic which are already probably in their agenda. Because if I think about the millennials and how they care about sustainability, how they care about the green economy, I think that if we give this generation, along with their aspiration, also the tools and instruments to reach these goals, then we will make a bingo.
On that point, Omar, about sustainability, can you give us some thoughts on how much sustainability plays into young people's thinking about career choices these days? In terms of their priorities, where does it rank on a list?
I won't say that it's the top, but it's an emerging topic, and I think that people are getting more and more familiar with this aspect, and there are some we can see some brand strategy targeting this particular aspect as one that could leverage also good profit for the company to are taking care of this particular aspect. So I'm seeing this growing. I'm not able to say it's in the top 3, in the top 5, but okay. I feel that this is coming up as an important one.
I was just curious about that, because even in the context of COVID-19, it has brought sustainability higher up the agenda. I think in the context of air travel in particular. I know Boeing's done a lot of huge amount of work in improving its environmental performance, and you mentioned working on the 787 program. But I just wanted to, before coming back to Martin and Thant, I just wanted to ask you and Enrica a question which you both touched on. You both touched on international working and travel and connection to other companies and arguably maybe even better cohesion within the Boeing enterprise. But what are the what are your thoughts on the STEM agenda and diversity issues in particular, and how that drives change in corporate culture and brings about better innovation and cohesion?
Yeah, I will start if Enrica agrees. I think that being exposed to this international experience, that was the best way to appreciate diversity. You know, I don't know if it's the same in English, but in Italy, this word diverse generally, you know, starts creating some thought of it's diverse. It's something I'm scared about it. So I should work to reestablish my usual status quo, my usual where I feel my comfort zone. So diverse equal fear, equal uncertainty. I think that, and I'm lucky to work with Boeing, who is really sensible about this kind of this experience. I think that we are seeing an important change. We are connecting more the word diverse with the word opportunity, because it was my experience. Every time I've been moved out of my comfort zone, leaving still at the first glance the same kind of approach scared, but then the way was something huge. When you see a similar problem faced by different perspective, and then you realize that, hey, I didn't think about it, and then you start growing. It's an invaluable addition, and I think that there are still many steps to take in order to we need to change this word diverse. That should become normal, because until we have to stress the importance of diversity, it means that the problem is still there. Once we can simply, when we won't have words to better describe something different, but it will be simply Nick behavior, Nick style, it's fine. Then we still have something to do. And I think that many efforts need to be done, in particular if we consider what happens to women's, who they make eventually same job as men, but they are stepping into job roles which were historically men-only activities. Now, when they reach this position, there are still some disconnection in terms of salaries that have been recognized to a woman or to a man, even if they are doing the same job. So this is, I think, this gives us a little bit the flavor, the temperature on how this can still be improved, and some efforts really needs to be put in place to cover this gap which are still existing.
Okay, that's an interesting point there, Omar. Let me just adapt that question, Enrica, for you a little bit. So what have been your experiences as a young woman in the industry? How do you feel you have been advantaged or disadvantaged in your career to date?
Yeah, so I mean, my experience is, I mean, has a lot of stories to tell and a lot of experience that I faced. And, but I mean, I can say that there are a lot of positive and negative points. To be honest, at the beginning it was not so easy because, I mean, as you said, when you are young and a woman engineer, so you have some time to test yourself twice because you have to prove that you are an engineer and that you are a woman engineer. So sometimes when you are in the meeting or whatever is the situation, so sometimes I have to explain myself twice, or perhaps I have to be consistent, persistent, or sometimes I have also to work around some, you know, some funny sentences or some funny approach. But I mean, I would like also to say that this is something that has to start from yourself, first of all, because I mean, you have not to put yourself as a woman in the spot that you have to feel yourself in a minor position because you are a woman. You know what I mean? So you have to avoid to have the bias vice versa. So think that perhaps the others are thinking about you some negative things, but when instead it's not true. So I guess that this kind of approach has from yourself to the others and from others to yourself. And I mean, what you have to do is just to work hard, prove yourself, be consistent, be professional, and avoid any kind of situation and be ironic. So I mean, it happens sometimes to face a situation that can be embarrassed or can be misunderstanding, but I think that be ironic and be professional is the best option that you can have to face this situation, because I mean, at the end, that and facts are what meaning mostly more than the words and more than the approach that the others can have among yourself. So, and I would like also to add the importance of diverse. How is important to have a diverse team? Because in this moment, for instance, my team consisting people from US, from India, from Europe as me, and from Japan. So you can understand how much our background is diverse, but also in terms of job experiences, because there are some people that are pure data scientists, people that instead come from the field and so have some more practical approach to the job. And so I can tell you that our meeting, our brainstorming are really, really interesting, because everybody bring out their position, their point of view that is so diverse. But I would say that when you are facing a real tough issue, a really tough problem, diverse team is what is needed. Because when you want to solve something, what is really powerful is the ability to look at the problem from a diverse point of view, to have a complete, comprehensive, and holistic picture of what you are facing. So this is the real ability of a team. It is the real important thing, and not the individual let me say, knowledge or the individual ability in do something, but it's the energy of the team, the diversity of the team. And so, yeah, so this is my experience. And I mean, I was in the same team with Omar, and we had a lot of good experience together. So the different points of view, the different approach to the job. The important thing is to have constructing conflict and be able then to finalize and to come to a common point. Because conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict can be good because it can have the ability to come up with new ideas, new perspectives, and it can also change yourself. Because I mean, if you work alone, and you are used to have a standalone job, I mean, and you will not change anymore. You will not change your mind, your approach. You cannot get all wider open mind. And so this is the really powerful, meaning to me about diverse, and be also a diverse element in a team as a woman. So this is my point of view.
Oh, that's very good, thank you. You covered a multitude of points there. I just want to come back, and I'm not trying to create an Italian and a UK team, but you've given us such fantastic perspectives. I just wanted to come back and touch on something that you said there, but look at it from a UK perspective in particular. So for Thant and Martin, it was really looking at how from your backgrounds, and we touched a little bit on your background, Thant, having come from a different part of the world, you had the aspiration to be in engineering, not necessarily aerospace engineering, because of your background in the oil and gas sector. And Martin, you came, I think, more out of a classic defense background. And we talked a little bit earlier about how you transitioned into aviation programs. But I'm wondering what your perspectives would be from an industry standpoint, not necessarily just Boeing, but maybe you want to reflect on what Boeing does. But what I'm really getting at is how you think the industry can help itself to harness more diverse engineering backgrounds, maybe from UK engineering communities, but maybe internationally. So let's go to Thant on that one first.
So it's okay. Let's think of the steps to this. There are a few. I mean, I have been in a challenging environment for sure. You know, especially in oil and gas. Still sometimes put myself in challenging environments. But as Enrica said, you know, personality plays a lot in this. Is how you receive it or how you perceive what the comments and so on and so forth. So let's try to see if I were to be interviewed for a role, and you know, and it is purely male dominated role, how would I feel, or how would I, you know, feel among others? So let's take example of my oil and gas experience. You know, it was very. I did for once feel that I was made a minority, or that there was only so small portion of people being interviewed or being considered. And I think that's very important when you have to have a diverse interview panel, as well as diverse a pool of people that you're picking from. Although, you know, on paper, you're first going to read on paper and look at on paper. You might not even know if the person is male or female, right, on paper. So I think that assuming a positive look to it, yes, look at the technical skill sets to start with, and widen that. You know, get a wide load of people in to interview, and then make your judgment that way, and have a diverse interview panel. I think that will really help in getting in a diverse bunch of people. Now, when we talk about diversity as well, we don't just talk about gender. We have to think about generation diversity. We have to think about cultural diversity. So all that aspect needs to be considered when we are considering people within the team.
Okay, that's great. And let's come to Martin quickly.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand, again, going back to Enrica and diversity in teams, but trying to understand how in the defence industry, which is, you know, I think it's quite limited in terms of the people that actually come into the industry. You know, I think a lot of the time the excuse is given of security. So, you know, to do your work on this program, you must have this level of clearance, and often there's sort of a blanket approach is placed, where actually some elements of that maybe don't need to be applied in particular areas. So maybe having a bit more flexibility on that, understanding what you know, some of the particular areas are very, very, very important to retain that sort of security and level of secrecy around them. But trying to make sure it is an open option to more different backgrounds, whether that be internationally or even within a country. You know, your limitation, if you've got a dual passport, for example, might be quite difficult. So I think that's one area we can do that. And also trying to look at how different types of engineers can come in. So systems engineering is a good example, right? Because, you know, I didn't do a degree in systems engineering. It's more of a way of thinking about producing a solution. So there's no limitation. You don't have to do an engineering degree to necessarily become a systems engineer. It's more about thinking about, you know, essentially outside the box, but also applying, you know, a particular type of process or a methodology. So I think trying to make sure people realise that engineering doesn't actually mean you have to be really hands-on, really technical, a low level of detail. You don't necessarily have to be a specialist in one particular area. You know, you can learn as you go through and develop your skills into a particular area, so you can transition. And it's really important. And I was reading something the other day around the next generation of people coming through, and in fact, the likelihood is they'll have several different careers throughout their lifetime. You know, I'm a bad example. I guess I've just been doing the same sort of role since I started my career. But in future generations, it's going to change, and they're going to have to potentially look at how they transition, because things are going to move so quickly. in terms of things like technology. The whole career, and the whole professional development thing is going to be completely different for them. And and understanding how we influence that at a younger age, but also as they go through their career, we're all going to live a bit longer as we go forwards as well. So trying to understand how we can prolong our careers and maybe move on to different things is quite an important part of that. So making sure that we can pull in from other parts without realizing you don't necessarily have to have that tagline of engineer from the off. You can actually transition into that sort of role.
Martin, I think that is an excellent answer to my last question. So let's come back to you last on this particular question, and you'll see why in a second. But what I wanted to ask Enrica, Omar, and Thant is, say you were talking to a youngster, a 14-year-old, who's weighing up decisions about how to progress their career. This is against the background of the big downturn in aviation, obviously the knock-on effect on the aerospace industry. But what would be your advice to someone 14 to 16 years old? What would be the top 2 things that you would say to them to encourage them to progress a career in engineering in the aviation and aerospace sector? Let's start with Enrica on that one.
Yeah, so for sure my message would be to be passionate about something, to take care about your interests, to be connected with all the things that happen in the world, be innovative, and never stop to have big dreams, and to travel and explore the world, dive into all the experiences that life will bring you out, and be curious about people's stories that are the real best lesson learned that you could have. But first of all, it would be really encourage them to travel a lot, to have a lot of experience, and to be curious, interesting, innovative in everything that they do, whatever is their field and the portion of business that they will choose to take care.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Let's go to Omar next.
It's always, hard to give some advices, but for sure you can make some consideration. And the first one is, keep up with your curiosity. Take that always alive. Don't give nothing for granted. And target huge goals. Set high expectation. Don't be how can I say? Don't be sad if you can reach exactly the highest target that you set, but still set a difficult one, because eventually you will fall closer, and so you will find something that is still good. And I think also that it's important to stress, that there is always this kind of correlation, at least in Italy. An engineer is look like a nerd, is a guy who doesn't like to hang out, who doesn't like to make parties. That's not true. I will tell to this 14 years old that I had an interesting life before becoming an engineer. So I will stress these aspects, saying that at the end of the journey, I think that this kind of studies provides you with an analytical mindset that will help you not only at work, but in every aspect of your life, and it will help you to make reasonable consideration, and you will always be supported by something more than just words and feelings.
Excellent. That's a really good, really good summary of things. And I think you just dispelled some of the myths about character traits in engineers, because some of the most engaging people I've met have been engineers. Let's go to Thant for the same question.
I'm going to use 2 examples here, 2 completely different examples. One being a young girl approached me saying that I'm considering to engineering. Have you got any advice? Or I have some doubts, you know, some questions. Yes, of course, yes. So she was considering to be a doctor or an engineer. And this is more, when I was growing up, my parents were like, doctor, engineer, or lawyer. That's your options, you know. This is more of a cultural background type thing. So we had a good discussion, and of course, her interest is in engineering, but because of the, you know, parents, they may be a doctor. And if you seek out advice of those who are already engineers, they can then, the conversation I had was led on to her having a work placement with us in Boeing. So, you know, if you seek out advice, those people who are already in the industry may be able to give you a taster of what it's like to be an engineer, so you can really experience what it is. If anything, clear your doubts, clear your thoughts, you know, answer all your questions you have about what an actual engineer do and different streams within engineering. So definitely seek out advice, definitely go out and look or reach out for people who are already in the job and ask them questions. And, you know, if it leads to a work experience, fantastic, because most companies do have that. And that's, you know, that's the best thing that you can base your decision on. And if not, go again, do more work experience, different companies, you know, widen your scope and then make a sound decision. The other example I've got is when I was participating in a volunteering program through Tomorrow Engineers. Went into a school, bunch of school children. Some of them were interested in the robotics project. Some were like, I'm not interested in this. Very teenager environment. One of them said, I approached them, oh, what's going on? You know, are you not interested? You know, do you not want to have a go? And she said, no, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be working in a hair salon. Oh, that's great. That's great. You know, have you thought about the technical aspects of, you know, doing such role? And she was, what do you mean by that? You know, the hair shampoos, the products you use, the way you would cut the hair, the way you would put nail polish, the research and chemicals that goes behind these products. You know, have you given a thought about that? Maybe, you know, there are some innovative ideas there when you grow up for you to get involved in. And suddenly, there comes STEM. STEM is involved in hair salon career path. You know, so those are the things that we can do from our perspective when they approach you for any sort. Try to let them relate and try to let them think bigger scope. So it gives them that more sound background or data to base their decision on, whatever the decision they take.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Martin, you can see now why I wanted to come back to you on this particular point, because I think you actually summed up, or you provided some great advice. But Martin, any sort of closing thoughts on this issue from your perspective now you've heard what the other panelists have had to say?
Yeah, I mean, so I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter. So at some point in the next sort of 15 years, or 10, 15 years, I'll be having these similar sort of conversations and trying to put yourself in a perspective on how do you frame it so that they make their own decision, but just give some good advice. And I think that's really difficult to do. But you know, I think it's really important that people understand what they want to do might not be the thing they do for the whole period of their life. So I talked about the different phases and how your career may change as you grow older and spend more time in your professional career. But I think it's really important for really look and decide what sort of thing ticks the box for them. You know, I think being curious. We talked about curious and analytical and innovation. You know, I think the aerospace industry is one area which really can scratch that itch, to put it in a certain way. You know, there's lots going on in particular in the UK and internationally where you can get involved with that sort of activity. And in the and wider beyond that in science as well. I mean, we hear about things like the COVID-19 vaccine research being done in places at Oxford, and all those sort of areas are really in the forefront of the news. So trying to make sure that sort of exposure and influence those people and say to them, look, this is a really interesting area and it's something that you could engage yourself with in many different areas as you go through your career is really important.
Martin, that is tremendous. We're absolutely bang on our hour's worth of discussion this afternoon. So I just want to thank my friends at Boeing, Martin Chandler, Thant Phway, Enrica Alfonzetti, and Omar Mongelli. Thank you for your really excellent perspectives. I think you've imparted some great advice based on some really diverse experiences this afternoon. Hopefully we'll manage to meet up at another air show at some point in the future when we can get back to doing that. But I think these kinds of activities and these kinds of discussions for helping young people get zeroed in on some of the issues and opportunities in the industry is really helpful. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and all the best for your fascinating careers and the interesting programs and great work that you're doing for the industry. So thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.